Well, hello, everyone. This is Michael Butterman, music director of the Boulder Philharmonic. I'm speaking today with composer Stephen Lias, whose new composition, I have to get the order right. I got to pull it out here. It's right in front of me. Wind, Water, Sand. I wanted to make sure I got them in the right order. Is going to be premiered by the Boulder Philharmonic on our January program, along with music by Michael Torki and Antonin Dvorak. This is a work inspired by Great Sand Dunes National Park, one of a great number of parks where Stephen has spent some time as a artist in residence, and you may recall that we played music of his, gosh, how many years ago now? Maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, possibly. Gates of the Arctic. And then, following the success of that, we, with the help of an NEA grant, commissioned him to write a work based on Rocky Mountain National Park, which is called All the Songs That Nature Sings. That was premiered in Boulder, but then quickly played again at the Kennedy Center when we went there with our Shift Festival appearance. So anyway, I wanted to just take a few moments to talk with Stephen and get some of his thoughts about how the piece came about and what audiences can expect when they hear it in January. So first of all, great to see you.
It's great to see you, Michael. And I'm going to indulge me. I'm going to pick up my camera and twirl it around to show everyone that on the wall right behind me is the green banner from the Shift Festival that
Very
you were
nice.
just referring to. Yeah. So
Yes.
that was, sorry for all the jiggly camera work, but that was such a wonderful experience to be working with you and your wonderful orchestra and then take it to Washington, D.C. So it's a great memory.
Well, for us too. I mean, it was really thrilling to be there, of course, but to share with the audience such a Boulder-based program, and the fact that we were playing this piece that was inspired by Rocky Mountain National Park, it's just so close by, is was very special as well. And this new work then also inspired by a national park in Colorado. Just give us the basic background. How did it come about that you were going to be spending some time at the Great Sand Dunes, and when did you write the piece, and so on and so forth?
Well, in many ways, the foundation for this whole collaboration began with our work together and the other pieces that you mentioned. But in specific, you might refer to this as a Facebook commission. This wouldn't have come about without social media. And that's kind of a wonderful thing to think about. I was posting or responding to someone on Facebook about something I was doing in a national park. And the former superintendent of Great Sand Dunes, who I was friends with from her previous job, responded to one of my posts saying, "Why are you doing all the cool things with other parks?" Like literally, that was the message that began the trajectory that we are now bringing to fruition. And so I private messaged her and said, "Well, are you serious? Because let's talk." And so from there, we cooked up an idea where she felt like, the park could provide me with a residency. They don't have a formal artist in residence program, but they could provide me with a collaborative agreement where they would provide some housing right there in the park staff housing, and I could immerse myself in the park in ways that it's a little difficult to do if you're just a visitor there for a day or two. And I, in return, said, "Well, I think I might know an orchestra who might be interested." And I probably texted or emailed you immediately, say, "Hey, we've got a possibility here." And again, as you say, it was another Colorado park. And so in particular, with Boulder's very sort of outdoorsy audience that responds so well to these previous park pieces, it seemed like a really, really good fit. And so those were the two halves of the equation. If you've got the park willing to collaborate on a residency and an orchestra willing to present it, as far as I'm concerned, that's a done deal. So we worked together to get it on the calendar. And then in May of 2023, last year, about a year and a half ago, I spent about 10 days in the park. And anyone who's been there will remember that it's it's this vast expanse of sand. And I'll share some pictures with you. Beautiful, vast expanses of sand that go on eternally. But there are also these spectacular mountains that surround the location. And so I kind of alternated days of walking in the sand and then walking up in the mountain area to get the inspiration of the surrounding mountains, doing extended day hikes in both directions. And it was really, really thrilling and inspiring in all the ways that I hoped it would be. And like with many of these pieces, I go into it with a very open mind, not having a preconception of what the piece will be or what the music will sound like or what the experience will reveal to me, in the hopes that on the journey, I will encounter those things. The place will, in many ways, reveal itself to me. And so that was the approach that I took here. And I can share with you sort of the first moment when the basic idea of the piece hit me. And so every spring, they have what's called surge flow, when the snow melt off of the mountain creates this rippling stream that flows across the sands. And as the water flows, it has this hypnotic shifting quality where the sand will build up these little barriers and then the water will flow over it and it becomes kaleidoscopic, and you can see the ripples move this direction and then that direction and little waves form. And literally, as I was watching this, and I started thinking about how these shapes, the little ripples in the sand, are very similar to that, but these were created by wind.
Right, right.
And that if you back out from the entire landscape and imagine, like, if we could speed up a century and see it as a time lapse over 100 years, this picture here would also look like that, as the wind changed the shapes of the sand dunes themselves. And that the connectedness of those things, all of them flowing, some flowing like water flowing, right, but also the water and the wind causing the sand to flow. And so if we see the sand dunes as like this large macrocosm of the water, and then if we could see the wind, the shape of the wind flowing over those mountains and those dunes, the wind would be shaped the same, if we could see it. And so the idea to me that I had in that instant was that the wind and the water and the sand were all flowing in exactly the same way, but at dramatically, epically different proportions and speeds, from moment to moment in the water, from day to day as the water reshapes the sand, and then, decade to decade as the sand dunes themselves slowly ebb and flow and grow and shrink. And that was the central idea of what the place said to me.
Right.
And so the title is simply that: wind, water, sand, those three elements.
That's a beautiful unity that you have hit upon here. I'm just, if I could play armchair composer for a minute.
Great.
Well, no, I guess and this will show you the simplicity of my thought here. So if I'm thinking of water, right? We think the way that water is often depicted musically is some sort of relatively rapid undulation up and down, this sort of thing, which represents waves or just sort of flowing water. In the case of wind, we often hear things that kind of go, if I'm, like a little breeze, where it was some chromatic, and they're now we do have quite a bit of that from time to time, at least in your.
Of course,
we see that, and I would say that there is a lot of surface energy and motion in the piece. At the very beginning, you have the strings playing this kind of it's an active rhythmic texture. Harmonically, it's not moving much, right? But it's kind of shimmering almost. Then you have this bass theme that comes in with in more sustained, longer notes. I guess what I'm getting at is how does one represent sand musically, or you were not necessarily thinking that literally? You were thinking more of the idea of just things flowing in general, or
well, you asked the perfect question. So having decided on the connectedness of the wind, water, and sand, very quickly when I started the writing process, I decided not to do the quite literal thing of have a sand theme and a water theme and a wind theme, or to, as you say, literally depict what those things sound or look like. Now, there are a whole host of surface level, like, so I did give the listener, if you're listening for something that's shaped like a sand dune, you're going to get some of that in the piece, certainly. But the thing that was more interesting to me was their connectedness. And as I tried to reduce it to sort of elemental level, I made another discovery, which was this is such a stark landscape, and its elements are, it goes up, it goes down, right? It repeats,
Mm-hmm.
it changes color. Well, every one of those things is what music does. It goes up, it goes down, it repeats, it changes color, goes at different speeds.
Right, right.
Right. And so if someday, if a music theorist is looking for an obscure subject to analyze, they may discover, you said that you talked about that long bass theme,
Right.
they may discover that some of the microscopic gestures in those real quick animated shimmering themes are the same sequences of notes that we're getting on those very, very long bass melodies. So that's my way of trying to mimic the metaphor I said earlier of some different things stretched out very long time or scrunched into a very short time that are going by very quickly. I'm trying not to be literal, and I wasn't trying to put myself into like a compositional box where I was using a system or anything like that. As I started to think of that, and as I looked at the landscape, I started feeling like I was walking through a sort of a musical experience.
Right.
And so the piece is not literal. It's not, other than the up and downness of it. It does have what I would describe as modestly exotic scale patterns occasionally that can be evocative if you want them to be of a more like, Ben-Hur desert scape. If you want to think of sort of desert scenery as having those evocative, more exotic scale patterns, but more I was focused on the connectedness of everything.
So this is Wind, Water, and Sand, which will be receiving its world premiere. There it is. You got the full color version. Mine is like
Right, you got it before it got its cover design. Yeah,
well, anyway, I don't get the pretty pictures, but
I'll bring you a pretty one when I come in January.
fair enough. Fair enough.
All your markings will be in the old one though.
Well, that is for sure true, and I'll leave them there as well. But this is receiving its premiere with the Boulder Philharmonic in January. Oh my gosh, I'm sitting here. I don't remember the actual date. It's Sunday.
January 12th, Michael.
Well, I'm gonna be there. So, and
I figure you will be.
I'm saying, yeah. And by the way, I am planning to be there. This will be the first concert this season in Boulder that I'm planning to. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you. I still have one more chemo session to go. So things are, I mean, everything is always subject to change, but that's certainly my anticipation. And I'm looking forward so much to being back and to seeing you and to sharing this this great music. Of course, not only this, but as I mentioned, Michael Torkey with Tessa Lark playing a concerto he wrote for her. And then, of course, the New World Symphony of Dvorak. It's a very American program. That was my intention here. And with a little bit of element of to some extent, the natural world here, this piece and the sky concerto.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, Stephen, great to talk with you. Thank you for taking the time. Looking forward to seeing you in Boulder. And I hope everyone who's watching will join us at Mackey Auditorium on the 12th as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.